Hey everybody, hope you're all well, and if you're live, which you probably aren't because it's a Saturday night in Sydney and it's about 10:05 in the evening. So I'm continuing on with the leadership principles. So I did a video yesterday, a live broadcast on Facebook, talking about congruency being the number one principle for leadership. So what this is about, if you haven't seen the first video, lots of people are writing about behaviors and traits and how to be a good leader and all those kinds of things. So what I've discovered, I'm probably not the first one to discover this, but different people resonate with different types of leaders and different types of behaviors, different types of traits. Some people will love a leader for one reason, and other people will hate that leader for the same reason. So what this is really about is, what are the principles, what timeless principles? First of all, it starts off as, are there timeless principles that produce great traits and behaviors in all leaders? And then it was, what were they? So rather than talk about traits and behaviors, which some people will resonate with and some might not, I want to talk about the principles that produce leadership behavior. It's kind of like going to the root, So if you're trying to behave in a certain way and not finding a way to do it, not feeling it, I suppose, as they say, well, how can you produce it? It's much harder to produce a behavior when you don't want to do it. But if you align with certain principles, the behaviors happen automatically. So that's what this is about. The first one yesterday was congruency. So when there's a congruency between what a person thinks, what they feel, what they believe, and what they do, and what they pursue in life, and what they set goals for, when all that's congruent, a lot of leadership traits take hold. A lot of leadership behaviors just happen automatically. So that kind of person who's congruent will be visionary. They'll have high energy. They'll be attractive, they'll be electromagnetic to other people. So the one today is paradox, and this is actually, this is quite a profound one in my opinion. It's also one of the more difficult ones for some people to grasp. But when you grasp it, it's a game changer. It's actually a life changer, because it's not just about leadership, it's about your entire life. So I want to talk about a little bit about what it is, and then how you can use it as a tool, maybe in your own leadership. So I'm trying out my earbuds tonight. Actually, I hope it sounds a bit better. I was in a taxi yesterday and it sounded a little bit weird. So I've got some earbuds and I've got some sunburn. So here we go. So paradox is found in nature. It's actually found everywhere in nature. So people talk about, wanting to be, they talk, sometimes in spirituality, people talk about oneness, right? And they don't like the duality of things. Well, in the physical world, there is duality. There's hard and soft, male and female, plus and minus, day and night, and all those kinds of things, right? So it's best not to try and escape that reality, I believe, when you're in business and when you're in pursuit of great leadership. So that being the case, or that being sort of an understanding in the principle of paradox, how do you apply it? So the whole point about paradox is that something, it's almost unexplainable, but at the same time it's contradictory. So the key, one of the ways to really understand it is looking at intention. So if you, let's say, have a desire, if you say you want to create a great business, and you want to help people, and you want to bring some products to the marketplace, you want to build, I don't know, factories just came into mind. You want to build all these things, right? And so if you then focus on all the things that you want, as a business, you focus on the factory, you focus on wanting to build a factory, you focus on wanting to make lots of money from building factories, and that's all you focus on, it's probably not going to work, because you're not thinking about who wants to use the factory, what are you building the factory for, and is it possible to build it in a way that actually benefits another person? So an example of this, I guess, I was working with a guy, other side of the world. I was working with this guy, and he was actually looking to help lawyers grow their businesses. And this guy was based over near Europe, and he's looking to help lawyers grow their businesses in the US. So what he did was, he was over there, and we were having this conversation in one of our calls together, and he was over going to the US actually, and he was trying to do this work in the US, and he was doing, if I remember correctly, I think it was Florida, and he said he was trying to create this sales training for them. And so he spoke about it for about 10 minutes, okay? And he was talking about how, he said, I'm trying to create this product, I'm trying to create this service, I'm trying to create this sales funnel, and I want to get 50 people in, and I want to make this much money, and I want 10 of them to come and tell me they were great, and so I can get testimonial, and I want to do all these things. I want to have this business, I want to be able to travel, and I want. So the reason we were having the call was because none of it was working. So people weren't joining, and the ones who did, they weren't getting any results. So what I was hearing from this guy, lovely guy by the way, and not a selfish guy by nature, you know, a lovely guy, but what I was hearing from this guy was, I heard I all the time, I, and then I heard focusing on his business and what he wanted for his business, which is fine. That's what the call was for. It was to help him with his business. But the only time I heard him mention the people he was serving was when I asked him who was he serving, and he said helping lawyers grow their business, and that was pretty much it. And then it was all about sales. So I asked him, I said, what did you hear? I related it back to him, and I said, what did you hear yourself say? And he told me what he heard himself say, and it didn't sound unusual to him. He didn't get it. He didn't get that all the focus was on himself. So I just said, okay, here's what I've heard, and I heard da 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 da, and I just related it back to him as I'd heard it, and it was a tough moment for him, but he's a lovely guy, and he took it, and he said, okay, I get it. He said, yeah, I'm hearing me. So the point of the entire conversation was, basically the punchline for him was, who is going to pay him to focus on himself? So the guy's supposed to be trying to help people, and all he was thinking about was himself. So I said to him, who's going to pay you to focus on yourself? You know, who's going to go to a doctor to listen to a doctor, you know, complain about their own smoking addiction? Yeah, who's going to do that? Very few people, if any. And so that was kind of like, I suppose that's the paradox. I mean, the story just came into my head. When I do these, I don't know what stories are going to come. I'm just going with it. That call was probably 4 years ago now, but it just came to my head. But the point that I want to make is, when you focus on others, that's when you get what you want. Okay, and as a leader, this is about leadership. So leadership, so paradox principle, so congruency being the first principle, the second principle being the one about paradox. Great leaders know that the only way they can get what they want is to actually help other people get what they want, get what other people want, is to focus on others. So, and this is the paradox, and this is the duality of nature. Okay, so you've heard me, maybe you've heard me in previous videos talk about energy, male, female energy, masculine, feminine. Well, there's internal, external as well. So if you want to improve internally, let's say in the business, you got to take your attention and put it external. You got to put it external on your marketplace. You got to put it external on the people you want to help as a leader. Great leaders know this. So great leaders aren't suffocating in their own greatness. You know, they're not you know, enamored with themselves too much, because they're genuinely focused on who they're trying to help, and in doing that, they get what they want, which is, well, it's different for everybody, but it's often something along the lines of fulfilling of a mission of some sort. So if you run a company, for example, you got to focus on who you're serving with the company, and you got to just obsess about that. And if you obsess about producing a result for your clients, for your customers, for whoever it might be, then you're going to do well with your business, because you're adding value. And if you're adding value, that means you're bettering somebody's life, somebody else's business, something like that. And if you do that, you're going to do well. So, you know, it's the same actually with speaking. You know, a lot of true leaders, they don't really have big problems with speaking. And one of the reasons for that is it's called, well, when I was learning some of the coaching modalities that I learned about 11 or so years ago now, we talked about uptime and downtime. And uptime is when you're outside yourself. Downtime is when you're inside yourself. So if you're out speaking and you're helping somebody, or you're on a stage and you're talking to somebody, and if you're in uptime, you're actually outside yourself. And outside yourself means you're with the audience, you're with the people that you're trying to help. When you're in downtime, you're down inside yourself. So wherever you are is where your focus is, by the way, okay? So if you're in uptime, your focus is external. So your focus is on your audience and helping your audience. If you're in downtime, your focus is on yourself. And if your focus is on yourself, that's what you're going to be focused on. That's what you're going to hear. You're going to hear more breathing. You're going to hear your heart pumping, probably. You might even hear, you know, self-talk in your mind saying, "Oh, you're this, you're no good, or you're people aren't listening," or whatever it might be. But if that leader is in uptime, meaning they're up and they're out with the audience, and they're out with the people they're trying to help and serve, then in doing that, they're not worrying about themselves. And this is the paradox, because they're not worrying about themselves. They are going to do a great job, a great service to the people they're there with. And in doing the great service to the people that they're there with, they're actually going to feel amazing in the moment themselves, even though they're in uptime. So even though they're outside themselves, they're going to actually ultimately feel great inside themselves. And then when they're inside themselves, they're going to feel bad about what's happening outside themselves, and therefore feel bad about what's happening inside themselves. So there's always a plus and a minus. So, you know, it's even basic things like memory. People talk about memory and say, "Oh, I'm losing my memory," or, you know, when I get like you see with people who are stressed, they can't remember anything. You go, "Oh, I don't remember what I was supposed to say. I don't remember the meeting. I don't remember," all sorts of things, right? So memory. So if you just use this principle that there's a plus and a minus all the time. So memory is just one thing, but if you break it down into its plus and minus, what would it be? Well, again, there's going to be an outward and an inward, or a masculine and a feminine. Okay, so with memory, it's basically record and playback. Okay, so if you record something, you play it back. That's memory. Okay, so when people say, "Oh, my memory's gone, I'm getting old, there's something wrong with me," they're talking about playback. They're saying, "I'm not able to remember what I need to remember to tell you." But actually, when people are stressed, they're not recording it in the first place, because they're not present. So there mightn't be anything wrong with the person, or, you know, or with their mind, or with their memory, in fact, because if they haven't recorded it in the first place, then there's nothing to play back. So not recording it in the first place could mean they just weren't listening. Somebody's talking to them and they're thinking about some trauma that happened in the past, or someone's talking to them and they're thinking about a meeting that they've got to go to an hour from now. So they're just not present. So when you're in paradox, you have plus and minus, and you have them equally, and you're present. You're present. You're just there. So back to the leadership piece. When leaders, so great leaders serve. They're servant leaders, and in being servant leaders, they feel fabulous about themselves, and that's the paradox. And I talked about intention at the start. If, let's say, somebody is desperate for something, like the person where we had the conversation where he was trying to help lawyers make more sales, but actually what he was doing was trying to help himself make more sales, because that's where his focus was. So his intention is what was destroying the business. His intention was on desperation. His intention was on worry and concern for himself and for his own business. His intention was not about his clients and saying, oh, how do I help my clients? How do I transform their businesses? How do I get them clients? It wasn't about that, really and truly. So the intention, it's the intention that produces the result. So his intention had in its fabric fear, worry, desperation, all those kinds of things. So that's a frequency. And like attracts like at energy level. So he's putting out that frequency and he's getting back that frequency. He's getting back fear and worry and all that kind of stuff. So I don't want to get too esoteric on it. It doesn't need to be actually esoteric. Everything can be if you want it to be, but it doesn't actually have to be. It's just if you watch your intention, and if your intention is to help and to serve, then that's what's going to come back. People, you're going to be in touch with people who want you to help and to serve. If your intention, I used I think I used an example of a manufacturing plant earlier. If your intention is to help somebody just build great factories, and you really put your effort into that, well then people are going to want you to build factories all over the world. So that's a little bit on paradox. There is a duality. And paradox is using that duality consciously as a tool to lead. So how do you do that? If there's a plus and a minus all the time, and there always is, then if you go into a company and let's say there's a problem, let's say as a leader you go in and you discover, well, let's use round numbers. Let's say there's a team of 100 people and there's like a subculture where 5 people are acting out, they're being difficult, they're causing trouble. The tendency is to go and just address those 5 people, what's going on. So with the paradox model, if you apply the paradox model as a leader, you will do that, but you will also look at the other side. You'll think as a leader who understands paradox, okay, if there is something off balance on this side, what's the counter? Where can I look on the other side if there's something out of balance over here? And so you might find that, well, maybe counterbalancing that, there might be a group of people who are regarded as being like golden children, untouchables, sort of like, the spoiled kids kind of thing. So in that leadership group, if you have, a subculture acting out, the leader will look for, okay, is there a counter force here? And there will be, and they'll find it. And so very often, and this is probably the crux of it, when you're using the paradox model as a leader, you look to the other side as well as the obvious one. So some people flip things, some people just ask questions in new ways, but a really, really good way is just, if there's a plus and a minus, a yin and a yang, a day and a night, okay? If you want to have a full quantum mind, a full perception of everything that's going on, don't just look at the minus, look at the plus. Or don't just look at the plus, look at the minus. So if the problem's on the minus side, look at the plus. So the minus side could be the subculture of, misbehaving is going on. And if it's serious and if it's a real problem, and you as a leader or a business owner need to look at it, examine it, but also look for where's the counter force, okay? Where's the opposite balancing behavior? And you might find, well, there are, a group of 4 or 5 people who are being so highly regarded by management that the rules no longer apply to them and they're allowed to do what they want because it's so-called good behavior. So they're getting away with lots of things, and you know, you have the other group acting out in sort of an unconscious protest. So this is all unconscious. It's not like it's not always deliberate. So there's an unconscious nature to this, and nature is a key word. So it's kind of these kind of things. They don't get made up by people like me. I'm not intelligent enough to do that. All I can ever hope for is to kind of learn to interpret, I think, is probably the word that best fits what I try to do with regard to these principles, is to try and interpret what I discover and kind of make sense of it. And in the interpretations that I've got, everything's aligned with nature. So that's why it just can't be weird, or it can't be esoteric, or it can't be, I suppose, wrong in a sense, because it's aligned with nature. And nature is, you know, wonderful thing, not to be messed with. And life goes better when you align with it and harmonize with it and flow with it. So, and so do companies, and so do businesses, and so do people. And great leaders know this. The amount of reasons that they have for knowing it and all that kind of stuff, I could go on forever on that. Obviously, I'm not going to. But yeah, that's an important principle, the paradox principle, and hope you enjoyed it. And tomorrow I will do the other principle, which is, I'm just going to call it the L word. Okay, the letter L, the L word, is the third timeless principle that produces the behavior and traits of great leaders. So congruency, paradox, and the L word are the three principles that produce all of the great traits and behaviors of great leaders. It doesn't mean all the leaders are the same. It doesn't mean they believe the same things. It just means they're aligned with these principles, and by being aligned with these principles, they have the energy, they have the vision, they have the bravery, the courage, and they have the compassion, and they have all those things that great leaders have. They become electromagnetic, people want to follow them, and it also keeps, above all, it keeps ego in check. So I will come back tomorrow at some stage and do a piece on the L word. I hope you enjoyed this, and yeah, if you're interested, by the way, in the course that we're running in February, it's for self-leading masters. That's what we're doing. It's a 4-month module. We'll be covering all this in much more depth, but we'll be applying it to specific circumstances, careers, businesses, companies, for members of the course. I'm also going to be creating a membership, an inner circle membership community, which I'm very excited about. And anybody who does this course starting in Feb gets automatic admission into the membership group for another year after that. So the first module is going to be discovery. Second module is going to be finding your channels to your goal. And the channels are unique to everybody. They're a reflection of each person. So that's kind of an exciting module. Then the third one is an action plan based on hierarchy of options. The fourth module is then about traction and uplift. And that's why I'm putting in the membership free for a year for anyone who joins the course in Feb, because to do the traction module in 1 month might be enough for some people. Some business owners can get a lot done in a month, but it might not be enough for everybody. If there's, let's say, people are stepping from one level of leadership to another, or one level of life to another. So the traction can continue in the membership group. And call Ronan.com if you want to know a bit more. Just book it. Just let me know your best number, best time to call. I will call you. Click it. It's here somewhere. I think it's probably down there, or maybe it's up there. I'm not sure. But call Ronan.com, and happy to have a chat. We'll do a bit of strategizing anyway with you if there are slots left, and if it suits you, if you think it's going to help you, you can by all means jump in. All good. And yeah, so it's 4-month module course. There'll be a couple of videos, I'll be on video with you twice a month. There will be content, there will be workbooks applying it. video to explain it, to help you go and do it, and then you go and do it and you come back and it'll be Q&A with me, and I'll answer any questions you've got, and I'll hot seat with people if they want a hot seat, and yeah, it's going to be exciting. So if you want to know more, go to www.callronan.com, book in a time, and I'll call you on the number you leave in the booking area, and we'll talk soon. And either way, I hope you enjoyed this, and I look forward to doing the third principle tomorrow.